A very pleasant good day to all our viewers and friends. We welcome you to another edition of Marriage Encounter. We're delighted to be with you on the airways, to be with you via the World Wide Web, whatever method you're using to listen. We are so delighted that you have joined us. We have, for the last several weeks, been talking about the very important subject of values. And that was indeed an interesting discussion, but we're moving on. We're going into an area that is also extremely important, an area that is relevant to anybody who is married. And you will, in a while, understand why we are saying that. Good day, Dr. Braithwaite. Welcome.
Good day, Dr. Greene. Good day to all of our listening and viewing friends. Exciting always to be in your presence, and I am personally looking forward to this new discussion as we enter this new area, Doc. I believe it's going to be very meaningful to our viewers and our listeners. So, tune in, call a friend, call your spouse, get in touch with somebody, let them know that Marriage Encounter is on, and your duo of Dr. Greene and Dr. Braithwaite are ready to share.
So we invite you at this time to have a word of prayer with us. Eternal Father, we are so thankful for the privilege to share again on Marriage Encounter. Be with us as we go into this very important discussion. Grant that those who listen will be inspired, will be motivated. Be with our words, give us wisdom to share in a way that will be meaningful to our listeners. In Jesus' name,
Amen. Amen.
Doc, today we want to start a discussion which will run into many weeks ahead.
For sure.
Because this area that we're going to be talking about is an area that, as I said before, impacts every married couple. It is a fact of life. It is something that is not bad in itself. I think by association, many people, when they hear it, they think trouble. They think, oh man, this is a challenge. Well, we're talking about conflict, right? And the whole matter of resolving conflict in marriage.
Right.
And I did say that it is not bad in itself. It is, in fact, inevitable. If you are married, you're going to have some conflicts.
That's right.
If you find a couple that is married for more than a month and don't have any conflicts, you need to direct me to them, right? So, well, of course, we're going to define conflict. We're going to talk about all of those issues. But we're going to begin foundationally, Doc, on this one.
Yeah. As I said, I think it's going to be an exciting discussion. And, we know that foundationally to the success of any marriage, there are some things that are just there, pivotal, and resolving or conflict resolution is one of those areas. Conflict affects every single couple. Even if you're a match made in heaven, as some people will say, you will experience conflict. And so, conflict is not so much the issue, because it's something that will happen, but how you're going to manage it is very critical to the success of a relationship. So we want to really spend some time talking about it and being real about what it really means and how it will affect us.
We do have people who are not married who listen as well. And somebody may be saying, because you said even if it is a match made in heaven, you would still experience some conflict. And somebody may be saying, well, how could that be? I thought the goal of every married couple is to have a conflict-free relationship, right? It's interesting. You will find life, if your spouse agrees with every single thing you ever suggest or say, that would be a cause for concern. Now, somebody may be thinking that's a pretty good thing, but it would be a cause for concern.
Well, I mean, absolutely, because nobody is a robot, and nobody is a mirror reflection of the other person. I have heard people say that, they may not say it with their mouth that they want their spouse to do everything that they say, but I've heard people say that, my spouse will not obey me, and that's an interesting statement in the context of conflict and its management. I don't know that you want somebody exactly like you. I think many of us, if we had to live with ourselves, would have quite a bit of problems.
Quite a challenge. So briefly, Doc, if we can just go into the why conflict is not such a bad thing. Why is conflict inevitable? we're different people.
Yes.
To begin with, one is male, the other is female.
That's first. Yeah.
That's the first thing.
And that comes with its own set of differences.
Exactly.
Just the way that you relate to issues, your context for operation, how you manage certain realities of life. They generally say that women are generally more detailed than a man is. Men tend to brush the surface. Women tend to, on certain matters, be a little more detailed. And so you can imagine how that could create certain challenges in the context of a marriage. Women tend to speak more than men do. Men tend to be a little quieter than women. Physically, men are stronger, bigger bones, just more burly. Women are a little less in terms of physical. They're smaller, more tender, if you want to put it that way. And all of these things have an impact on how people relate to issues.
Most definitely. And then we will add things such as your childhood experiences, the home you came from. Your parents may have related to certain issues in a particular way. Your spouse's parents may have related to those same issues in a totally different way. You may have different traditions that are important and meaningful to you. In fact, you may grow up thinking that something is just wrong, should never happen. And your spouse may have grown up thinking this is the best thing in the world. And you get married and discover that that is a challenge. How
Absolutely.
do we relate to this?
Absolutely.
So there are so many things. I mean, we could spend the rest of this program
Just talking about differences.
Just talking about differences and how they impact a marriage relationship.
The number, where you were born in your family, what number of child you are, first or last or in the middle. Each of those persons in that journey have different characteristics. A husband may be a last child, a wife may be a first child. That is a cause for differences in the way that you relate and the way that you transact business in the context of a marriage. So, as you mentioned, Doctor, it's far, it's wide, and there are lots of differences.
A lot of differences. And, we haven't spoken about cultural, the dimension of culture, because you may not be from the same country that your spouse is from, and even some expressions may create a challenge, because one thing may be really innocently said, but your spouse interprets it as something offensive, perhaps. Again, because of cultural dynamics. So when you bring all of this together, and you are going to live with this individual for the rest of your life, it is just almost impossible for you not to have a difference of opinion on a particular matter, different experiences coming together. There is going to be a conflict. You may want to occupy the same space at the same time, and that is a challenge.
Right. So yeah, just managing the marriage covenant in the context of understanding some of the precursors or some of the things that can actually bring about conflict is very important, and an awareness of that fact. Like a lot of people get married and they have this Hollywood type of a mentality about what the relationship will be like, that it's going to be just all fun and glory days, and it's a bed of roses. And I mean, they may even not think it's a bed of roses. They may even think that there may be some challenges, but they have no clue as to where and how these challenges can come about. Somebody could probably never imagine that we could become so conflicted over chores in the house.
It's interesting, and maybe we should use that as an example, because it's good to give a practical dimension as to how some of the challenges in conflict may arise. So you get married, and one of you is at home, because only one person is working, and since you're at home, you decide you're going to do the chores, the other person goes out to work, until you get another job, or a job. You go back into the job market, and then maybe your spouse presumes that you're going to continue to do what you were doing, and all of a sudden it becomes burdensome, and you have a discussion, and let's say it was the wife who was at home, and you have a discussion, you say, I'm working now, I expect you to assist.
Right.
And he may look at you and say, that's the woman's responsibility.
Oh, wow.
And that could create a whole
Yes.
set of challenges right there.
Again, and possibly you never imagined, because in your head you figured we get married, it's just gonna work itself out. You know, you think it's understood that the other person would anticipate that they will have to do their fair share of the work. And in this scenario that you've shared, while it was being done maybe by the wife who was home for that period of time, now that she's left, there's a void, things are there to be done, and the other person is not picking up the slack. They're both working. They both go out at maybe 8 and come back in at 4:35. Dishes are there to be washed, food is to be cooked, clothes are to be washed, ironed, prepared. All of the things related to home are there to be done, and there is no solid agreement as to how these things are going to be done. And very soon somebody begins to complain that I always have to be taking out the garbage, or I always have to be washing the dishes, or I always have to be cooking the food, and the other person now there is that creation of a conflict with the other person who's thinking, but you used to do those things last couple of months, why you don't want to do them anymore?
And the way we say it, if we're criticizing and we're fault finding, then the other person may want to push back, and that creates another challenge in itself. Expectations is also an important thing, because some people enter marriage with you started saying that people think it's going to be a bed of roses. We're going to get married, we're going to have fun.
Yes.
It's just going to be so wonderful, the two of us. Because, in your courtship moments, every time you meet your partner, your fiancé, it is always such a joyous occasion. There's a lot of emotion, and you can't wait to get married. And you go on the honeymoon, and it was awesome, it was fantastic. Because guess what? You're in a hotel, and maid comes and cleans
the room,
you don't have to cook and that kind of thing. Yes. And then you go back to the real world, and you have to go out to work. You have to make home. You have to cook food. You have to concern yourself with paying bills, with maintaining the yard and maintaining the house, and when children come along, taking care of their needs. And you suddenly discover, listen, there's a lot of responsibility here, So expectations and unfulfilled expectations can create a challenge. And if you are not mature enough to deal with this, and you don't get proper counseling in dealing with it, you may begin to think, my spouse is unreasonable. I'm not happy with my spouse because this is not what I expected. Right. And these can create challenges.
Right, absolutely. And so, we could spend all day just talking about chores, right? That's the reality. And amazingly, as I said, a lot of people place very little emphasis on that part of that component of their lives as they get married and plan to live together, that there are things to be done. But I was just going to say that, there are a number of areas where persons can find some challenges as it relates to the marital experience and the things that can create certain conflict situations. And you can think about, work, how work, your hours at work can create conflict. You mentioned a person can have a change in work schedule. Somebody may have been working 8 to 4 and now they've gone to do shift work. And how does that impact the marriage and how things are done in the home? That's one area.
Well, work.
Yes.
Work is. It's an interesting dynamic, because when you think about it, Doc, work controls a major portion of our time.
Yes, it does.
We get weekends off.
Yes.
Some people, because not everybody does. But you get up on Monday morning, and what's on your mind? I have to prepare to go to work.
Yes.
And in order to beat the traffic and to get to work on time for 8 o'clock, you may have to leave home 6:30 or 7 or whatever the time may be. So you have some time preparing for that, and then you're out of the house by 6:37. And you may be getting home 5:30, 6 o'clock. So that's nearly half of your day.
Correct.
And that is going to be repeated on Tuesday, on Wednesday, on Thursday, and on Friday. And you get home from work, and you're worn, you're tired, and you begin to think, I'm living for work. Right? So that in itself, the whole matter of work. And we have not gone into the stresses that you experience at work. We're just talking about work in general.
Work in general,
because some people can come home, a teacher can come home and had a really challenging class, and the way children are these days, that in itself can be an added stressor. So Work is an interesting dynamic.
Yeah, it is. You also have components of your work being very, very demanding. Some persons have to put in extra hours, go beyond the call of duty, and that might be a problem to your spouse who's saying, well, what about us? You understand? You may be a go-getter. You have persons who want to make certain contributions to society and to the world, and so they throw themselves into their work, and at every moment they get an opportunity, they're doing work. How does that impact your spouse? Those are some of the realities, the dynamics. You called out late in the evening to go to work. You have EMS, emergency medical technicians who have to work sometimes through the night, into the morning, or doctors who are on call, and other people of that nature, that type of ilk of work. We are on call. You may be in your bed at 2 o'clock in the morning, you get a call. You have to go. Those are real dynamics.
Now, I want to add another dimension, because you may have been working 8 to 4 or 8 to 5. Maybe you are doing this, you get home from work, and you pretty much leave work until the next day. But then you get a promotion.
Right.
You become management.
Yep.
And they give you a laptop.
Yep.
And you come home and you realize, my office is with me now.
Yeah,
so you're not leaving the office anymore. You may be leaving the physical space,
right,
but you're bringing your work at home.
Yeah.
And in an effort to be able to keep things running, you may be called to, check out something, do something, and all of a sudden, you are bringing home work, and it is creating added burden on the time that you would be giving the children or giving your spouse, and that becomes, in fact, your spouse may have been, before that promotion, you may have criticized your spouse that he or she is a workaholic, they're always doing homework, and then you find yourself in that
same
situation.
Right,
right. These things can create real stress
absolutely.
in the marriage. And so we're talking about examples of things that can lead to conflict.
Yeah.
So when we talk about work, no wonder we put it first, because that is a
work is a big one.
Yes.
Another huge area, Pastor, is when children come along. I think the statement is that you are never the same after your children are born. Right?
I tell people, children change your life forever.
You never stop being a parent. Number one, and children create a dynamic in a relationship that is, I think, sometimes underestimated and understated, because many of the things that you would have done prior to having your children, you just can't do those things anymore. And also, we often encourage young couples when they get married to give some time before they attempt to have children, because we know that they need that bonding time. And the truth is, maybe, I don't know what the statistics are, but I'm going to say maybe 50% of people who get married, they don't necessarily heed that advice. So within sometimes 8 months to a year after being married, they're pregnant. And that child comes in maybe, just on the cusp of the second year mark in your relationship. And your life is never the same again. Never the same again.
And so if you, and because we're being real here, Doc, if you did not spend meaningful time in courtship,
yes,
because some people get married, they meet today and a
soon
few months after they're married, and you did not spend meaningful time in courtship, and you get pregnant soon after you're married, it robs you of the bonding that is so essential, because when those children come along, from the time the wife discovers that she's pregnant, things begin to change.
That's right. That's right.
Things begin to change. And the pregnancy itself can be an exciting period, but it can also be a very challenging period for the mother. She may, especially that first trimester, there may be a lot of adjusting, nauseating feelings and the like.
Not feeling well,
And unfortunately, sometimes the men experience that.
Too, I've learned that. Yes.
But that does happen, and then the child is born.
Yes.
And this baby just takes over your life. The baby all of a sudden is in charge. Everything centers around the child.
Yes.
And from stage to stage in the development of this child, what we notice, Doc, is that there is different challenges, you know. At first, the baby doesn't know the difference between night and day, and the parents can't sleep because every 2 hours the child is up screaming.
Ready to eat.
And that's a challenge.
Yeah.
But then the child goes into another phase,
Yes.
and then they go to school, and it's another stage, and you have to deal with homework and assignment.
Yes.
And if you're one of those parents who like to have your children involved in activities,
Yes.
one or both of you will have to be taking your child to swimming, taking your child to music lesson, taking your child here, getting time off from work to see the child perform in a concert, in a whatever, and all of that impacts you.
Yes. Not to mention the financial burden.
Oh, wow.
Not to mention the finance and the change in your finances as a result of having a child. You know, just the cost of the things that are related: food, clothing, daycare, nanny care, preschool, you know, school, college, the whole works. I mean,
talk about it.
Medical costs, clothes, you know, everything. I mean, it's just, you know, a financial challenge. And so it impacts your relationship in such a way, not just the social, well, yes, the social aspect of your relationship between husband and wife, but also create some new dynamics in your discussions on finances, where, you know, one person may be feeling that, you know, we need to spend more money here on this child, or buying certain things, the other person thinks that's too much. You know, spending time with family, sending the child overseas for summer vacations by auntie, uncle, you know, those kind of things. You know, the money, where does it come from?
and of course, finance is always a big deal.
Always.
But for parents who maybe did not plan to have the child or the children so soon after marriage,
Yes.
that in itself,
Or at all, by the way.
or at all,
Right.
you know, that in itself can create a challenge. Because here you have these plans, you're going to get married, you're going to spend the first 2 years learning each other, traveling, doing things, and on your honeymoon night you get pregnant, or 3 months after, or whatever the case may be. And you now realize, oh boy, you know, things have changed. I really didn't plan for this. Maybe mommy was thinking about going back to school, and it's just too much to handle with a child. What we are saying, friends, is that children can create significant conflicts, because while we're talking about general financial challenges, and what these things do is that they set up a scenario for conflict, because people may have different understanding of how they want to discipline the children.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
You know, or because we're talking about finance, where we should prioritize in terms of savings or putting things there. And mommy may really have this need for the child to be a good musician and give them exposure early, and daddy may be saying, well, we can't afford that. And these could become significant challenges.
Wow. I mean, just wow. And why I say that is because, you know, if you don't sort of sit down and really think about it, it could be lost on you. You know what I mean? It could just feel like that's no big deal, you know. But the truth is, and research shows us that, you know, we've mentioned work, we've mentioned children. The dynamic of the impact that these things have on your relationship is huge, and can really lead to scenarios where conflict can become rife in your relationship, because you're just not in a place to manage the changing dynamics in your relationship.
And the reason we're talking about these is because, you know, if you don't understand, maybe your relationship is very conflicted, and you're not taking the time to digest what's the source of the conflict.
Right, where's it coming from?
You know, and you may be in the midst of so much without stopping to think. You know, you may be thinking, you know, we wanted a child, and we should be happy now we have the child, but the way you deal with the child, the awareness you have of the challenges that this child may bring. We're not in any way suggesting that you must not go and have children.
Right.
I heard on the radio yesterday, was it, that Japan is begging. In fact, they have instituted a number of measures for people to get children.
Aging population,
it's a challenge. They,
Yes,
they
it
see
is.
that the economy is, I mean, the population is aging.
Yeah, yeah.
So we are not suggesting that you must not have children, but we want to highlight the fact that these are areas that can create conflicts in your marriage.
Yeah, and Doc, I mean, our time is running low.
Yes.
But we have a number of other areas to share and to discuss in the upcoming week. So we want you to stay tuned.
That's
Yeah.
right. So friends, if you do have questions, comments, or concerns, please drop us a line. The mailing address, of course, electronic, is marriageencounter@slcadventist.org, marriageencounter@slcadventist.org. That's all the time we have for today. Until next week, same time, may God's richest blessings be yours.